Be bold and be brave. It's a concept that'll help keep your portraits from tightening up and losing their vitality. If you watch this video to the end, you'll see what I mean. Prior to this photo being taken, I had scrubbed in the light flesh tone with no drawing preliminary, and then some of the flesh tone in shadow on the shadow side of the face. And then I started going in with some outlines and then scrubbed in the hair. Say it was about 15 or 20 minutes work. Here I've added some warmth to the flesh tones, some of those pinks in the cheeks, tip of the nose, the lips, up on the forehead, and reinforced some of the darks. The shadow side of the nose, shadow side of the chin, and some more reinforcement of darker tones in the hair. Mainly, the background. The idea here is to cover the canvas as quickly as possible. Here, the portrait is already basically finished. I've completed covering the whole canvas with paint and developed the background a bit more, put in darker touches in her eyes, plus the highlights, reinforced values along the shadow side of the nose and on the shadow side of the face. Little things developing gradually, but basically the painting is there. The form shadow above the mouth on the shadow side of the face, and giving a little more form, a little more drawing in the mouth. Being careful not to define the mouth too carefully. Remember, the mouth and the eyes in real life are always in motion. This is a good example of what can happen if you don't know when to end that day's session. And that's particularly hard if you're working from photographs, as I was in this case. At the end of the day, though, I was quite satisfied with the way this looked, because I'd worked for so long that I didn't know whether it was good or bad, really. And when I looked at it the next morning, I thought, how could I have thought that was any good? It's missing the mark. I've lost the likeness. I've lost the sense of form. The drawing is out of whack. And so, what I had to do was to put a veil over the whole face. Pretty extreme, but sometimes that's what we need to do, rather than putter around trying to rearrange the features one at a time. That never really works. You got to get a running start. That old car that didn't make it up the hill the first time, let it back down and get a better start until you make it to the top. So this is what I strongly recommend to get yourself out of a jam. Take some courage. You say, oh, I worked for hours on that face. I can't, how can I? And so on and so forth. But it really is the best thing to do, as you'll see. I think it was the right thing to do in this case. And here's our fresh start. And it's, by the way, much easier to do a second start like this because of all the work that you've done prior to this. All that work that was rubbed out, but you learned from it. You were more familiar with what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And so it's always good to see that as a positive, even when you're having to rub out work that you've spent sometimes hours doing. Think of it as all contributing to the success of the painting. Here I'm making haste slowly, walking back, putting a touch or two on the painting, making sure. I don't want to have to rub the whole face out again. So I'm a little more careful. And since the rest of the painting is pretty much finished, I'm just showing close-ups of the head for a bit here. I have to be careful at this point, though, that because I'm focusing mainly on the head as far as painting it, that I look around, look out the window, get your eyes off the painting, look at some reproductions of portraits, look at your painting in the mirror. The mirror is a very, very important tool to catch mistakes because you're seeing the painting in reverse, and it really reveals a lot. I highly recommend that you use a mirror as one of your tools. It's as important as your brushes or your paints, really. Here the head is pretty well finished. The earring on our left, on her right, needs to be put back in, because remember when I painted that veil of flesh tone paint over the whole face, I needed to reshape that side of the face with background against the flesh. And so the earring got painted out. But basically the eyes and the mouth have a feeling of motion, of movement, which is what I've tried for. And the balance of lights and darks, the flesh color I think is good, it's working. There's a play of warm and cool. And there's not much else to do. This is the finished head. You can see I've put that earring in, and I've kind of slimmed down the face a bit, the edge of the face on that side as it goes around toward that ear. I had a little bit too much fullness in there before, but just little touches here and there. Now, another important thing that I haven't mentioned is the treatment of edges. If you look at edges in this painting, and remember that hard edges or sharp edges will always draw the eye to them. And soft edges are not necessarily going to draw your eye. For instance, the dark of her hair on the upper right against some of those lighter background patches, that's a soft edge. And even though the value contrast is pretty great, that's not the first place you look when you look at the painting. Possibly from a distance, maybe 5 or 10 feet back, you might see the edge of the neck and the jaw on the left side, her right. And that will take you right to the face immediately, no matter what else is going on in the painting. And then from there, the eye can travel around. And as it goes up along that side, where the flesh meets the hair, there's a harder edge there by the eye. And then it gets softer as it goes up toward the middle of the forehead. And then it comes down and it stays soft, and it gets a little harder as it gets near the eyebrow. It's kind of like music, where you have very smooth, continuous sounds, as opposed to choppy kinds of sounds. So keep that in mind too. It's really an important part of making a painting rich, along with your color and your value and your drawing. That's, as I said, the finished head, and now we'll take a look at the finished painting. This is the result of a total of about 4.5 to 5 hours work. I stopped, hopefully, before it started to get overworked. Remember, it's always better to leave some of your T's uncrossed and some of your I's undotted, rather than risk losing its vitality and its expressiveness as a work of art. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe. And if you would like a free video on mixing flesh tones, click the link below. Happy painting!